Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It is Steph is So Weird, and I'm Steph. Hi. We're still here today reading The Curse of the Blue Figurine by John Bellairs. And we're going to get into chapter 9. It's a long one, so I'm cutting it into two parts. And I think I found a decent place to move it, to like split it. So let's see what happens after Johnny's been sitting on a bench talking to no one. Except a ghost, maybe. Hmm. With his ring on his finger. Okay, here we go. Chapter 9. The sessions clock on the Dixon sideboard was striking 10 as Johnny opened the front door and stumbled in. Johnny felt numb and unbelievably tired. Every bone in his body ached. Was he awake or asleep now? It was hard to tell. He had seen the ghost of Father Bart, and the ghost had given him orders that in 7 days he must return to Dustin Park. He had to return at midnight next Friday, and he had to bring the blue figurine with him. He did not know why he had to do this, but he had been given very strict orders. He had to do this or he would die. The ring could kill him. This he had been told. He had also been told that the ring would be taken from him that night. He would then be set free, and nothing bad would happen to him. His life would be his own to live. But if he told anyone about the midnight meeting, or if he failed to show up, then he would die. He would die in horrible torment. Dully, mechanically, Johnny unzipped his suede jacket and hung it on the coat tree. He gazed blearily around at the friendly hall of furniture, at the china umbrella stand, and the old pictures, and the deer head that was missing a glass eye. These things failed to comfort him. Was Grandpa still up? The door of the living room was open, and a narrow bar of light shone out into the dark hall. Johnny heard a chair creak, and then he heard Grandpa's voice. "Johnny, that you?" "Yeah, Grandpa," Johnny answered wearily. He shuffled to the open doorway and stopped. "I'm sorry I was out so late." Grandpa shrugged. "It's okay. Your grandma's the worrier in this family, but she's gone to bed." "I'm headed that way too, the way I feel." Grandpa paused and looked at Johnny in a guarded way. "Do a lot of praying, did you?" "Uh-huh. Well, good night, Grandpa." "Good night, Johnny. Sleep tight." Johnny stood in the doorway a moment longer, staring in at Grandpa. He had an overwhelming urge to rush in and fall down on his knees at the old man's feet and tell him everything that had happened. But he was scared. He was scared, and he felt cut off from the rest of the world, like a prisoner in a dark, windowless dungeon. Still, he had to pretend that everything was all right. So he merely smiled wanly, turned, and began climbing the creaky oak staircase toward his bedroom. Grandpa Dixon rocked back and forth in his rocking chair. He looked thoughtful and also tense. Suddenly he got up and walked across the room to the doorway that opened into the hall. He stood there a few minutes, peering up at the dark staircase. From the bathroom came the sound of running water. Grandpa stepped back into the living room and pulled the slide door shut. Then he walked over to his smoking stand and picked up the chipped green glass ashtray. He turned it this way and that in the lamplight and examined it as if it were a rare museum object. Then he set the ashtray down and began to pace back and forth on the rug, limping slightly because of his arthritis. Tap, tap. What was that? Grandpa turned toward the bay window and looked. There in the lower part of the window, his nose pressed to the glass, was the professor. He looked like a crabby sort of ghost, peering in. Grandpa grinned. He had been expecting the professor to make an appearance. Quickly, Grandpa limped across the room and pulled back the door. Once more he glanced up at the dark staircase. No sound. Johnny must be in bed now, and probably sound asleep. Grandpa went to the front door and opened it. There stood the professor. He looked as if he had been wading through deep, wet underbrush. The knees of his pants were soiled, and there were sprigs of juniper decorating his coat here and there. His tennis shoes were soaked and caked with mud. "Come on outside," whispered the professor hoarsely. He pointed back over his left shoulder toward the front yard. "I can't talk in the house. I'd be afraid Johnny would be listening down the hot air vent or something. Grandpa followed the professor out across the front porch and down the steps. Halfway down the sidewalk, the professor turned. Okay, this is fine, he hissed. He dug his hand into one of his coat pockets and pulled out a box of Balkan Sobrani cigarettes. Opening it, he took one out and lit it. Something is very wrong, Henry. He, be- he began as he puffed at a cigarette. Very wrong indeed. I followed John down to the church and then from there across the river to Dustin Park. Grandpa's mouth dropped open. Holy God, what the heck did he want to go over there for? The professor grimaced. Your guess is as good as mine, Henry. But the most disturbing part is yet to come. When he got there, he sat down on a bench. Well, for a while then, he just sat there. But all of a sudden, he looked up as if he saw somebody coming. And then, I swear to God, he sat there and had a conversation with somebody who was not there. The professor paused and stared grimly at the ground. Make something of that if you can. Grandpa was at a loss for words. He glanced up at the dark window of Johnny's bedroom and he shook his head. Oh, my Lord, he said in a low, sombering voice. What the devil do you think is wrong with him? The professor puffed some more of his cigarette and he made little hems and haws noises in his throat. This meant that he was thinking. Henry, he said at last, how long ago was it that his mother died? Grandpa thought a bit. It was, well, in July of last year. Almost a year ago now. The professor nodded. Mm-hmm. And then, right after that, his dad got hauled back into the Air Force. And Johnny got shipped up here to a strange new place, to new surroundings, and knew everything. Grandpa looked puzzled. He put his hands on his hips and peered down at the professor over the tops of his glasses. Rod, what the heck are you trying to say? The professor gave Grandpa a dirty look. Don't call me Rod. But to answer your question, what I'm trying to say is just this. I think Johnny may be suffering mentally, because too many bad and upsetting things happened to him in too short a space of time. Grandpa wrinkled in his forehead. He looked very concerned. You mean you think Johnny's gone crazy? No, 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 snapped the professor, waving his hand impatiently. I didn't say that. I didn't say that at all. He heaved a deep sigh and with an effort controlled his temper. What I am trying to say, he went on through clenched teeth, is merely that people, even reasonable, sane people like you and me, can go off our trolleys temporarily if bad things happen to us. I don't mean that Johnny is ready for a straitjacket, but he is acting a mite peculiar, and he seems to be pretty unhappy. And I think we'd better get him some help and get it quick. Help? Said Grandpa, still mystified. What kind of help? The professor looked exasperated. Mental help, Henry. You are the living in the Henry. Mental help. Henry, you are living in the 20th century, whether you like it or not. I know that psychiatrists aren't terribly popular yet in America, but I will venture to predict that in 10 or 20 years, there'll be hordes of them all over the country, making money hand over fist by solving people's problems. But all this is beside the point. We need to do something for Johnny right now. What's the name of your family doctor? Oh, how right he was. Oh, Doc Shermanhorn. You know him, don't you? The doctor frowned. Yes, I know him. He's the one who diagnosed my cousin Bay's brain tumor as bad teeth, shortly after which she died. But I suppose he'll do. Any port in a storm, as they say. All right, then. Why don't you get Johnny an appointment with good old Dr. Shermanhorn? Shermerhorn. Such a terrible name. Shermerhorn. Like it's Schermer Horn. Shermerhorn. Doc Shermerhorn. Just doesn't. Oh, gosh. All right, then. Why don't you get Johnny an appointment with good old Doc Shermerhorn? Explain the problem to the doctor, but don't let Johnny know why you're making him see the doctor. Tell him, well, why don't you tell him that you think he needs a checkup? Yes, that's it, a checkup. Meanwhile, I'll see if I can figure out something else that might be done. All right? Grandpa nodded. All right. And thanks a lot for your help, Rod. You're a real good friend to Johnny. Don't mention it. Eventually, John may need to see a real psychiatrist. I wish I could recommend one. but I know only one personally, and I wouldn't use him as a shield in a mud ball fight. See you tomorrow. By the way, if you keep calling me Rod, I'll start calling you Hank. How about that, huh?" Grandpa shrugged helplessly. "What the heck else can I call you? It's your name, isn't it?" The professor grinned mischievously. The professor grinned mischievously. "Call me Randy. My middle name is Random. I was named for Roderick Random, a character in a novel by Tobias Smollett. Good night." He turned abruptly and marched back across the street to his house, humming as he went. Yeah, just a little bit more. Okay. Johnny did not get much sleep that night. He tossed and turned and kept waking up to listen to noises that weren't there. When he arrived in the kitchen for breakfast the next morning, he looked like the walking dead. His eyes were red and his hair was muscled and he felt prickly all over. He kept glancing nervously this way and that as if he expected things to come springing at him out over the corners of the room. Grandpa was sitting at the kitchen table. He was sipping coffee and munching a piece of toast. He glanced quickly at Johnny and then looked down at his plate. Grandma was over at the stove, stirring the oatmeal she always made for Johnny's breakfast. "Hi," said Johnny sluggishly, and he slumped into his seat. "Hi there," said Grandma without turning around. "Nice morning, eh?" "Uh-huh," said Johnny tonelessly. Bright sunshine was streaming in through the kitchen window, but it might as well have been raining or blizzarding for all he cared. Silence. You could hear the electric clock over the stove buzzing. "Johnny," said Grandma at last, turning and smiling kindly at him, "we want you to go see our doctor, Dr. Schermerhorn. Dr. Schermerhorn." "Yeah," Grandpa added. He coughed to hide his nervousness. "We we think you look kind of under the weather these days, and so, well, we think you ought to have a checkup. We got you an appointment for this morning, and we called up the school and told the sister you were going to be home today on account of you feeling sick. The appointment is at 9 o'clock. After you have your breakfast, we can get in the car and go." Johnny looked wearily at Grandpa and then at Grandma. How much did they know? Had they found the figurine? Did they know about Mr. Beard? He swallowed hard and tried to look healthy and bright eyed, which under the circumstances was rather difficult. "Gee," he said, trying to be jaunty, "I don't see what you guys are all worked up about. I mean, I feel great. I really do." This was more than Grandma could stand. She turned around with the bowl of steaming oatmeal in her hands and she glared at Johnny. "John Dixon!" she exclaimed indignantly. "That is the worst lie I have ever heard in my life. You look like the wreck of the you look like the wreck of the Hermespus. I wouldn't be surprised if you was running a fever. So don't sit there with your face hanging out and saying that you feel all tip-toppity fine. Lord above." Johnny hung his head. Tears came to his eyes and he bit his lip. Once again, he had a strong urge to confess everything. But, as before, his fear held him back. The ring on his finger was like a dynamite bomb strapped to his body. If he told everything, it would go off. I'm sorry," he said in a low, sniffling voice. "I guess I don't feel too good today. I'd like to go see the doctor." And so later that morning, Johnny went downtown with his grandparents to see Dr. Schermerhorn. Dr. Schermerhorn had an office on the third floor of the First National Bank building on Merrimack Street. Dr. Schermerhorn was a fat, shabby man who chuckled a lot and told very bad jokes. He examined Johnny and announced that there was nothing wrong with him. He suggested that Johnny stay home and rest for a day or two. Grandma and Grandpa were not satisfied with this, however. They insisted on talking to the doctor in private, and they told him about the strange things that Johnny had been doing lately. Dr. Schermerhorn thought a bit, and he hemmed and hawed a bit, and finally he took a pad and a piece of paper and wrote a name and address on it. High gas, Melcon, High gas, Melconian MD, 0 Prattle Street, Cambridge, Massachusetts. "This guy is a psychiatrist," said Dr. Schermerhorn as he handed the slip of paper to Grandpa Dixon. "Now, speaking personally, I don't care very much for head shrinkers, but it might be worth a try. This guy is smart as a whip, and he speaks about 16 languages. Hypnotizes people too. That's one of his big old techniques. Watch out, he don't hypnotize you out of too much money. Dr. Schermerhorn laughed a great deal at his little joke, and he was still chuckling as Grandma and Grandpa left his office. I'm going to pause there because it's a good place to pause, given where the chapter is. Yeah, this is fun. Schermerhorn. I hope I don't have to say his name too much more. Oh no, I do. Look at that. I have to say his name. So this should be interesting because now I have to say Melkonian, Dr. Melkonian. Okay, so thank you for coming in today. I hope you're enjoying like this book read. I'm excited for the next part, and I will read tomorrow on Sunday. So thanks for being here. Like and subscribe if you like, and I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.